Hello guys, what's up? This is Murtaza. Welcome back to Coder Journey. This is the next episode of our object-oriented programming in C#. In this video, I have decided to talk about interfaces and their relationship with abstract classes and methods and how they are different. I told you in the previous video that one of the differences between interfaces and abstract classes is that with interfaces, we can achieve multiple inheritance. So basically, you can implement more than one interface at the same time. But when it comes to deriving from a base class, you can only derive from one single class. So this is one of the, I think, main differences between interfaces and classes or abstract classes. Anyways, there are many things that you need to know about interfaces. Of course, we cannot go over all of them, but in this video, I have decided to talk about the most important ones, right? And as before, first we're gonna study them in a theoretical way, and then I'm gonna take you to Visual Studio and show you how you can work with interfaces. So without further ado, let's get going. In C#, another powerful way to achieve abstraction is through interfaces. So an interface is basically like an abstract class. It can contain only abstract methods, methods that do not have method bodies, and properties with empty bodies, right? So by convention, it's common to start the name of an interface with the letter I to kind of distinguish it from other kinds of classes or other, code elements, because we want to show that it is an interface. Of course, you do not have to do that, but the convention is to, start the name of an interface with the letter I. Interfaces like abstract classes define a contract that other classes must implement. So when you implement an interface, you are forced to respect the contract of that interface, the methods or the properties. And then these interfaces, as I told you, can contain methods, properties, but not fields. And members of an interface are public and abstract by default. And you will see what it means when we go to Visual Studio. Now, to use an interface, you are going to implement that interface. So when it comes to a class, we usually say deriving from a class or inheriting from a class. But in the case of interfaces, we say implementing an interface, right? The implementing class, so the class that is implementing that interface, must provide the body for the methods of that interface. So what are some of the key points that I would like you to know about interfaces? First and foremost, interfaces cannot be used to create objects. We also said that you cannot instantiate abstract classes directly. I told you about that in the previous video, right? Next, the methods of an interface do not have a method body. So you, as the class that are implementing that interface, are in charge of providing the method body. Next, when you are implementing an interface, you must override all its methods. You cannot, pick some certain ones and provide method bodies for only those methods. You are going to have to override all of them. Next, interfaces can contain properties and methods, but they cannot contain fields or variables. Members of an interface are by default abstract and public. And lastly, an interface cannot contain a constructor. So this is, again, one of the differences between classes and interfaces. Let's move on and talk about why and when to use interfaces. Achieving security. I told you that abstraction means hiding certain details, not exposing them to the outside world. So with interfaces, you can achieve that, right? You can only show important details, of an object through an interface. Next, multiple inheritance. I told you in the previous video, right? I told you that with classes, you can only derive from one single class, but when it comes to interfaces, you can achieve multiple inheritance. C# doesn't support multiple inheritance with classes, but it can be achieved with interfaces. A class can implement multiple interfaces at the same time by separating them with a comma. Last but not least, interfaces play a very important role in achieving flexibility, reusability, and maintaining a clear structure in your code base. Now, that was it. Now I'm going to go to Visual Studio and I'm going to show you a couple of things you need to know when it comes to working with interfaces. So here I am in Visual Studio in the solution we have been working on. So far, I have added a new console application project. And first off, I'm going to show you how to declare an interface. So I'm going to right click and create a new class. We can use the class here. We can also go for interface. I'm going to change this, and as I told you, the convention is to start the name of your interface with the letter I to show that it is an interface. So I'm going to say interface animal, right? And of course, you do not have to do that, right? But the convention is to do that. And I can declare my interface as public, right? And then I can say that, for example, one of the methods of an animal interface is make noise. And I told you that the methods cannot have bodies, right? Let's see what happens if I add an access modifier here, public void make noise. So it is valid to do that, apparently. And then we can say public void run, for example, right? So this is an interface containing two methods which do not have a return type, right? Void, and then the names make noise and run. And now I can, have a class which implements this interface. I'm going to say animal. And then in order to implement an interface, we are going to do the same thing as inheriting from a class. So we are using to add colon and then the name of the interface. And you can see that Visual Studio is going to shout at us because it says that, you are going to implement the members of that interface. In order to do that, I can go on and write the code myself, or using Visual Studio, I can click here and then something shows up, a pop-up shows up. You can also press Control dot from your keyboard and then it says implement interface. And if I click that, you will see that I get the methods that I need to implement, the methods that I receive from the interface. And now I am, I have to put the code for the method bodies for these two methods, which I get, from the interface. And of course, these can have specific, bodies. For example, for, let's say this is a pig, right? I can say make noise. The pig is making noise, as before, is making noise, right? And for run, we can say the pig is running. And remember that I told you we can implement more than one interface at the same time. I'm going to declare another interface. I'm going to call it pet, right? And I can say public void sleep. And then in order to implement this interface again in my pig class, I'm going to say I pet and then control period or control dot from my keyboard, implement interface, and I get this interface, this method from the second interface. And then I'm going to declare the method body. The pig is sleeping, right? And of course, interfaces can also inherit from one another. Yeah, I can see that, for example, I've got another interface here, iPet. And then, for example, in this case, I can say that iPet inherits from animal, right? And here, I do not need to add iAnimal. I can use iPet because iPet contains both the sleep method and the two methods which are declared here. Let's go back to the first version that we had here, right? So right now, I've got the pig class, which is implementing two interfaces. I told you multiple inheritance is achieved in C# through interfaces, something that we cannot do with regular classes. And then I can go here and declare a pig. And then I will have access to the methods which I receive from the interface. Sleep, make noise, and make noise was here. And also the other one was sleep, I think, right? Pig.run, right? Run, yes. So you can see that I have access to the methods which I receive from these two interfaces. And that was it for interfaces. Of course, there are many things you need to know when it comes to working with interfaces. I cannot go through all of them by any means in one single video. That was something I just wanted to show you. If you enjoyed watching this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, you give it a like, and stay tuned for the next video. The next video, I think, will be the last video in this series, where I have decided to talk about enumerations or enums. Stay tuned till later. Bye-bye.